Electric vehicle sales, since that's all the rage among the industrial policy types on the left. Ace of Spades had a good write-up on this. The EV transition has stalled out, and except for Tesla, EV manufacturers are seeing their growth fall. In some cases, sales are collapsing. Take Ford. Sales of the F-150 Lightning electric pickup were off about 46% during third quarter due to slower than expected demand and downtime at the plant, reported CNBC earlier this month. Ford sold just 6,400, round numbers, F-150 Lightning EVs in the third quarter of 2022, but sales in Q3 of 2023 fell to 3,500, which annualizes to only about 42,000 a year, but Ford executives are still presenting at like they're going to sell hundreds of thousands of EV pickups per year. That doesn't seem to be what demand is indicating. As for downtime at the plant affecting sales, Ford dealers are currently choking down a 97-day supply of Lightnings nationwide when the ideal supply of vehicles on dealer lots is 60 days worth. Meanwhile, Ford has suddenly canceled all further deliveries to dealers of 2023 model year F-150 Lightnings that are not already pre-sold. Ace of Spades translates, what would have been year model 2023 electric pickups are now going to be year model 2024 electric pickups after these additional quality checks they're speaking of generically, to ensure there's not a glut of unsold prior year model Lightnings in 2024. There's still going to be a glut, but the dealers will at least dealers will be sitting on a glut of year model 2024 as opposed to 2023. Also, with demand for EVs collapsing, there's also decreasing demand for the lithium-ion batteries that propel them. Don't tell the Chi-Coms locating to Mantino. What of all these grand demands of politicians at the federal and the state level, Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, that you shall sell these many and we shall transition from fossil fuel burning vehicles by X date? For more on this and other matters economic, we're pleased to be joined again by John Tamny, editor of RealClearMarkets.com, director of the Center for Economic Freedom at FreedomWorks, and author of The Money Confusion, How Illiteracy About Currencies and Inflation Sets the Stage for the Crypto Revolution. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Breaking
Can you hear
up.
us okay?
Do we have John there in a clear line?
Yeah.
There we go. John?
Yep.
Okay, good. What about the EV revolution? It seems to have hit a wall.
It'll be interesting to see. Markets seem to think there's something to it. Tesla, I think, is still the most valuable car company in the world, which could be an indication that electric cars will gradually win the hearts of consumers, or it could be that what Tesla is going to do ultimately is going to spread across all sorts of different consumer lines. Think Amazon. Amazon began as a book company, but became something much more. And so it appears there's something to it. Obviously, you and I, in our perfect world, the government wouldn't be trying to put its thumb on the scales, let people decide to drive the streets. It's apparent that people really like these cars. I've rented them a lot. I find them a bit difficult because they're difficult to find chargers for. Mm-hmm. But,
you know what you need? You know what you need on the charger thing, John? I got the solution for that next time you rent one.
What?
Is get one of Jennifer Granholm's staffers to drive ahead of you to reserve the charger so you don't have to wait in line with the rest of the hoi polloi.
Yeah, no, that would certainly help. And so, I think there's something to Elon Musk is brilliant. And you can't say that he's just a crony capitalist because, as you note, lots of car companies have gotten into this too, and they haven't seen the bump in their stock prices. And so there's got to be something to it. What it is, I don't know. At least as of now, they're kind of difficult to own if you want to drive a lot.
I remember when Americans used to have a choice. Remember that back in the day where we, as consumers, could choose what we wanted?
Yes, and I get the feeling you're not going to take gasoline-powered cars out of the hands of Americans. I've seen, as you have, all the decrees that it's going to happen. Americans like their cars. Good luck to that. They've been making decrees about all sorts of things for as long as we've been alive. I don't think electric will replace. If anything, we're going to see more gasoline-powered cars alongside lots of electric. But we'll see.
I've got an idea. Maybe Ford. And I'm not looking for a job, but maybe just to help the CMO there at Ford, get Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift to endorse the EVs, because the people seem to have fallen in love with those two falling in love.
It's our new royalty.
Yeah.
It's a great world we live in when we get to focus on these things. We must be a rich country, and we should
exactly. Well, I mean, I
don't even think that endorsement would help.
I just hope it's not infatuation. I hope it's the real thing for those two. You know what I mean, John? We don't need to be hard-hearted economists about this. All right. On other matters, you wrote an interesting piece, a little bit counterintuitive, as you're wont to be, that this chaos on the border that has been well documented is actually a sign of America's strength. Explain.
Well, let's look at a couple of things. No one's lining up to get into Haiti. No one's lining up to get into Peru or Honduras. People risk their lives to get here because this is where the opportunity is. If you look back to 2020, the border was empty. If you look back to 2009 to 2014, when the economy was weak, more people crossed back south of the border than came in. And so what we see is when the U.S. is booming, people risk everything to get here. To me, the border is just an obvious thing. When you try to centrally plan what is a market phenomenon, you get chaos. We've seen that throughout our lives. Nothing new here. Regardless of one's view of immigration or whether there should be a wall or not, let's not deny what that is at the border. That's government trying to centrally plan a market phenomenon. They're coming here for work, obviously. And how we know that is they don't come here when the economy's weak.
Well, I mean, it's a mixed bag. When you have 2 million people apprehended at the border, you've got a mixed bag. You have some people that want opportunity. You have some people that may have less admirable motivations, as we've seen with the incidents of criminal activity, for example. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah. Well, of course it is. And so in my perfect world, there would just be an agreement that people have to announce themselves along the way. And then at which point those who don't announce themselves would be more obvious. You could pick them out. You could pick out the people who are trying to hide their arrival. Imagine if work were legalized here, the border wouldn't be crowded in the first place because employers around the U.S. would be flying the workers in. They'd be bringing them in by train. They'd be bringing them in all sorts of ways that they can't do it now. But until we recognize that you can't solve if you think immigration is a problem, the only way to fix it is to crush the economy. And so until we do that, and Americans thankfully aren't willing to do that, people are going to risk it all to get here. I find that a beautiful thing. I find that a happy story. Other people feel differently, but let's not deny what this is. This is central planning of what is a market phenomenon.
Well, in part, but I mean, you're not saying you can't have a robust economy and continue to be the global economic superpower and also have a secure border. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
Why not have a border? But once you try to limit the flow of people to where there's opportunity, you're not going to have a secure border. As in, the quickest way to secure the border is to legalize what's obvious. U.S. is abundantly full of opportunity, and people are going to keep risking their lives to get there until we recognize this. Now, think about it if we legalized work. Would people be bringing grandma? Would they be bringing mother? Would they be bringing the kids? No. They're coming here for jobs. If you legalized the process whereby people could come in, they wouldn't bring the whole family. And so you wouldn't have all these externalities that we have. But we're never going to see that because both sides, it's political gold to politicize this migration of people. And so both sides will continue to take either side of it and will never solve it.
Well, do you think there's a possibility that, blue state governors are taking in all these illegals because they need to increase their base? Because you look at all the blue states and people have moved out by the tens of thousands.
Well, I think for one, how do they need to increase their base? So is suddenly California going to go red if we close the border? I mean, please. Secondly, they're not legal to vote in the first place. Third, they don't even want to vote. They're here for jobs. And we know that. Again, were the borders full of people in 2020 when Republicans locked down the economy, when Donald Trump said that we're going to lock down the U.S.? No.
Well,
because there was no opportunity here, because people were losing their jobs by the tens of millions. When Obama was president and he was overseeing a slow economy, the border was similarly empty. We have the border is full when the economy is growing. This is the land of opportunity. We either have to accept that truth or we can go the other way.
You wrote recently about the Egyptian magician Bob Menendez. That he is a symptom of a larger problem in D.C. I mean, he's allegedly a symptom, of course, because he hasn't been convicted of anything. But him and his wife alleged to have represented the Egyptian government and essentially acting as a Manchurian lobbyist for the Egyptian government, failing to disclose that he was doing so. So what is that a symptom of in D.C.?
It's a symptom of the longer you serve in D.C., the better you get at politics, the better you get at moving money around, the better you get at moving influence around. And so, to me, the easy solution, I don't think it will solve everything, is to limit time in office. Bob Menendez couldn't have become the paid-for guy by Egypt in his first term as senator. He became valuable to countries like Egypt as his time in Washington grew, and he learned how to basically orchestrate things in Washington. And so my answer is always make sure these guys are here for a brief time so that they can get back to the real world. If so, they don't develop the skills that make them attractive to those who want to ply them with money.
You also wrote another relatively counterintuitive piece about federal largesse, federal waste, suggesting that maybe there is an upside. We just got through this, government shutdown theater not so long ago, which we do routinely, once every other year or so. And you suggest that, all of this money wasted by the federal government for many, 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 many generations, there's an upside to it. What's that?
Well, the upside is, and to be clear, I don't like Social Security as a bad idea. I think Medicare was a horrifying idea. But I always hear from the libertarians on my side, isn't it awful? Oh, my gosh, now just the interest on the debt alone is going to be $1.1 trillion or $1.5 trillion. Well, okay, perfect. So we've failed miserably twice with Social Security and Medicare, and we're paying it off. That means there's fewer dollars for them to dream up other new horrible ideas, domestically and globally. And so I don't like it. But when I hear people say, "Oh, well, isn't this terrible? The debt's going to swallow the federal budget." Well, that's kind of a good thing, right? If they're paying off debtors rather than dreaming up new programs, wouldn't we prefer that? Because we know the new programs will be disastrous and grow and grow and grow. If this is a barrier to them intervening and ruining our lives, let's have the barrier.
Yeah, but aren't you forgetting about the printing press?
I'm not forgetting about the printing press, because the printing press is a popular thing that people say, oh, yeah, they're just printing money. But why haven't we seen the dollar collapse based on that? Because no one believes it. The dollar is the world's currency. Is it perfect? No. In my perfect world, the dollar would have a gold definition or some kind of stable currency definition. But as evidenced by the fact that the world uses the dollar as its currency, as evidenced by the fact that lenders around the world line up to lend to the United States, no one expects the U.S. to use the printing press. Because if they did, markets aren't stupid. No one would buy U.S. debt.
And so what's your reaction to those who worry about this debt load that we're carrying, both in terms of actual and unfunded liabilities, and that makes us susceptible for the dollar to be replaced by the BRICS, who are trying to cook up their own global reserve currency?
Well, there's no evidence of it right now, and I think the evidence supporting that is all the debt. If we had a debt problem, we wouldn't have a lot of debt. What we have is a too much revenue problem, which, as you know, from any business or government, a business or government or individual known to have a lot of money or to be taking in a lot of money can run up lots of debt. And so if you want to fix the debt, you don't do it as the idiot supply side are saying, hey, Laffer curve. That just gives more revenue to the government. And you don't do what the left-wing Democrats say, hey, we need to raise taxes. What you need is less revenue so that they can borrow less. It's kind of a basic thing. And I find it so frustrating that people on my side keep saying, look at the burden we're leaving to the grandchildren, the debt. Have they lost their minds? The burden is not the debt. The true burden on the grandchildren is the size of the government they're going to inherit. I don't want a balanced budget. I just want shrinking government. And so that's the true burden we're leaving them, yet no one talks about them. There's this horror of government spending that's out there that we could vivify so easily. But the people on our side instead focus on deficits that markets plainly don't care about. And how we know they don't care about it is investors around the world line up to buy the debt.
John Tamny is the editor of RealClearMarkets.com, president of the Parkview Institute, senior economic advisor to Applied Finance Advisors. His latest book, The Money Confusion, How Illiteracy About Currencies and Inflation Sets the Stage for the Crypto Revolution. John, thanks as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer. Cable news. Noisy, out of touch, on repeat. Tired of all the lookalikes? So are we. Salem News Channel is here to change the game. Streaming 24/7, free on your TV with the greatest collection of conservative voices. Home to Dinesh D'Souza, Andrew Wilkow, Brandon Tatum,